The Elephant Island Chronicles presents The Lipstick Conspiracy by Conrad Hannon. Narration by Amazon Polly. Forward. Welcome to The Lipstick Conspiracy, a journey through the whimsical world of Sunshine Farm. In this story, you'll meet an eclectic cast of characters navigating the peculiar machinations of their barnyard parliament. As you dive into this tale of political absurdity, where even the most outrageous ideas are spun into strokes of genius, remember that the humor and folly you encounter are but reflections of a fictional world. Enjoy the ride through the chaos and the cunning, and draw your own conclusions about the lessons hidden within. Disclaimer: any resemblance to real persons, living or dead, or actual events is purely coincidental. Cough, cough. This work is a product of imagination, and any similarities are unintentional. Conrad. The Lipstick Conspiracy. Chapter 1. The Barnyard's Peculiar Parliament. In a forgotten corner of the countryside, where rolling hills met sprawling meadows, lay a farm unlike any other. Sunshine Farm was not just a place of agriculture, but a grand experiment in animal self-governance. The Barnyard Parliament, established generations ago by a whimsical farmer with a penchant for political theory, had evolved into a complex system of animal rule. The Parliament building itself was a converted barn, its weathered red paint peeling to reveal the gray wood beneath. Inside, hay bales served as seats for the animal representatives, arranged in a semicircle facing a raised platform. At the center of this platform stood an old feeding trough, repurposed as a podium. It was here that the current leader, President Hogsworth, would address his constituents when he remembered to do so. Hogsworth, an ancient boar with grizzled fur and rheumy eyes, had long since lost his grip on reality. His mind wandered through a labyrinth of memories, leaving him incapable of governing. Yet, tradition and a lack of viable alternatives had kept him in power far beyond his prime. As dawn broke over Sunshine Farm, the animals began to stir. Roosters crowed, cows lowed, and sheep bleated as they emerged from their respective dwellings. Among them waddled Pigella, a sow of unremarkable appearance and even less remarkable intellect. Pigella had not always been an important figure on the farm. In fact, for most of her life, she had been overlooked entirely. Her rise to prominence was a testament not to her abilities, but to the machinations of those around her. Chapter 2. The Puppet and Her Masters. Cluckington the rooster strutted across the farmyard, his red comb bobbing with each step. His beady eyes darted from side to side, ever vigilant for opportunities to expand his influence. Beside him trotted Ewephoria, a sheep whose wool was always impeccably groomed, a stark contrast to her devious nature. Another day, another chance to solidify our control, Cluckington clucked softly to his companion. Ewephoria nodded, her eyes gleaming. And our dear Pigella is the key to it all. The unlikely pair had recognized in Pigella the perfect puppet. Her constant state of confusion and eagerness to please made her malleable, a trait they had exploited to perfection. Their partnership with Pigella had begun innocuously enough. During a particularly harsh winter when food was scarce, Cluckington and Ewephoria had taken pity on the struggling sow. They shared their rations with her, an act of kindness that Pigella never forgot. From that moment on, Pigella latched onto them, grateful for their attention and support. It wasn't long before Cluckington and Ewephoria realized the potential in their new friend. "Remember how we got her elected to the sanitation committee?" Ewephoria reminisced as they made their way to Pigella's sty. Cluckington chuckled. "Ah, yes. By convincing everyone that her natural inclination to roll in mud made her an expert in waste management." That had been their first experiment in molding public opinion. They had taken Pigella's most obvious flaw, her love of wallowing in filth, and spun it into a qualification. The other animals, amused and somewhat bewildered, had gone along with it. Encouraged by their success, Cluckington and Ewephoria had set their sights higher. They maneuvered Pigella into more prominent positions, each time reframing her shortcomings as unique strengths. When Pigella got lost during a simple errand to deliver messages between farm sections, Cluckington praised her innovative approach to communication. When she had accidentally knocked over a month's worth of feed, Ewephoria had applauded her proactive method of feed distribution. With each blunder transformed into a triumph, Pigella's reputation grew. The other animals, initially skeptical, began to wonder if perhaps they had underestimated her. After all, if so many of her apparent mistakes turned out to be strokes of genius, surely there must be more to Pigella than met the eye. As they approached Pigella's sty, they found her snout deep in her breakfast trough, oblivious to the world around her. "Good morning, Pigella," Cluckington called out cheerfully. "Ready for another day of revolutionary leadership?" Pigella looked up, bits of slop clinging to her snout. "Oh, good morning," she squealed, her voice high-pitched and uncertain. "Revolutionary? Yes, of course. What are we revoluting today?" Ewephoria suppressed a sigh. "Revolutionizing, dear. We're continuing your visionary work of transforming the farm." "Oh, yes, yes." Pigella nodded enthusiastically, though clearly she had no idea what Ewephoria was talking about. "Transforming. That's what we're doing. How wonderful." Cluckington and Ewephoria exchanged a look. Their work was cut out for them, but they had long since mastered the art of turning Pigella's vacuousness into an asset. "Come along, Pigella," Cluckington said, gesturing with his wing. "We have a big announcement to make at today's Parliament session." As they led Pigella towards the barn, Ewephoria leaned in close to Cluckington. "Are you sure about this lipstick idea? It seems a bit much." Cluckington's eyes glinted. "My dear Ewephoria, that's precisely the point. The more absurd the idea, the more they'll believe it's genius. After all, who would dare question something so audacious?" Ewephoria nodded, admiring her companion's cunning. As they entered the barn, the chatter of assembled animals filled the air. All eyes turned to Pigella, flanked by her two advisors. Little did the farm animals know that they were about to witness the beginning of a new era that would test the foundations of their society and push the boundaries of their credulity to the breaking point. Chapter 3. The Great Announcement. The Barnyard Parliament was in full swing as Pigella, Cluckington, and Ewephoria made their entrance. The assembled animals quieted down, their attention drawn to the unlikely trio. President Hogsworth sat atop his hay bale throne, his eyes glazed over, barely registering the proceedings. Cluckington cleared his throat. "Esteemed members of the Barnyard Parliament, we come before you today with an announcement that will usher in a new era of prosperity and progress for Sunshine Farm." A murmur of anticipation rippled through the crowd. Bessie the cow leaned over to whisper to Horace the horse, "What do you reckon it'll be this time? Another one of Pigella's brilliant ideas?" Horace nickered softly. "Who knows? Last time it was using our tails as paintbrushes to beautify the fences. Took weeks to get the paint out of my hair." Ewephoria stepped forward, her voice ringing out clear and persuasive. "Fellow animals, we have neglected a crucial aspect of our society for too long. We have focused on productivity, governance, and the mechanics of farm life. But what about our spirits? What about our sense of self-worth?" The animals exchanged puzzled glances. Old McDougal the sheepdog raised a paw. "Begging your pardon, but what exactly are you getting at?" Cluckington beamed. "I'm glad you asked. Our visionary leader, Pigella, has devised a plan that will revolutionize how we look and feel about ourselves." All eyes turned to Pigella, who had been staring vacantly into space. Realizing she was the center of attention, she let out a startled, "Oink," before composing herself. "Yes, yes, revolution. And feelings. Very important," Ewephoria smoothly interjected. "What Pigella means is that we are about to embark on a farm-wide beautification project. One that will boost morale, increase productivity, and mark us as the most progressive farm in the region." "And what, pray tell, is this project?" asked Henrietta the hen, her tone skeptical. Cluckington paused for dramatic effect before declaring, "Lipstick for every pig on the farm." The announcement was met with stunned silence, broken only by the sound of President Hogsworth snoring. Lipstick," stammered Wilbur, a portly pig known for his pragmatism. "But we're pigs. We don't wear lipstick. We don't even have lips in the traditional sense." Cluckington turned to Wilbur, his eyes narrowing. "Are you suggesting that our esteemed leader's idea is anything less than brilliant? Need I remind you of how her past initiatives, though initially misunderstood, have all turned out to be strokes of genius?" Wilbur faltered under Cluckington's gaze. "Well, no, but—" "Exactly," Ewephoria chimed in. "Pigella sees beyond our limited perceptions. This lipstick initiative is not just about aesthetics. It's about empowerment, about breaking free from the constraints of traditional barnyard thinking." Pigella, catching on that she should say something, oinked enthusiastically. "Yes, lipstick is freedom and progress." She beamed at the crowd, a glob of mud dislodging from her snout and plopping onto the floor. The animals muttered among themselves, a mixture of confusion, skepticism, and reluctant admiration in their voices. Cluckington raised his wing for silence. "I know this may seem unconventional, but ask yourselves, has Pigella ever led us astray? When she suggested we plant our crops in spirals instead of rows, didn't our yield increase? When she proposed we communicate through interpretive dance, didn't our understanding of each other deepen?" The animals nodded slowly, remembering these past successes. Of course, what they didn't know was that the spiral planting had only worked because it had accidentally created a more efficient irrigation system, and the interpretive dance had forced them to pay more attention to each other's body language. Ewephoria seized the moment. This lipstick initiative is more than just a cosmetic change. It symbolizes our farm's commitment to progress and thinking outside the sty. Who's with us? A cheer went up from the assembled animals, growing in volume as more joined in. Even those who had doubts found themselves swept up in the enthusiasm. As the meeting adjourned, the animals filed out, buzzing with excitement about the upcoming changes. Cluckington and Ewephoria exchanged satisfied glances. Phase 1 of their plan was complete. Pigella waddled up to them, her face a picture of confusion. "Did I do good?" she asked hesitantly. "Oh, Pigella," Cluckington cooed, patting her with his wing. "You were magnificent. Your vision will transform this farm." Pigella beamed, basking in the praise she didn't quite understand. As she trotted off, Cluckington turned to Ewephoria. "And now," he said, his voice low, "the real work begins." Chapter 4. The Lipstick Revolution Begins. In the days following the announcement, Sunshine Farm buzzed with anticipation. The pigs, initially skeptical, found themselves caught up in the excitement. Cluckington and Ewephoria's propaganda machine worked overtime, plastering the farm with posters showcasing glamorized pigs wearing vibrant lipstick. "Beauty is progress," declared one poster. "Lipstick today, utopia tomorrow," proclaimed another. Meanwhile, Pigella was paraded around the farm, her every move scrutinized and reinterpreted as profound wisdom. When she tripped over her hooves, Cluckington quickly spun it as Pigella's innovative approach to locomotion, challenging our preconceptions of movement. The day of the great lipstick application arrived with much fanfare. A makeshift stage had been erected in the center of the farmyard, draped with colorful banners. Boxes of lipstick, procured through Cluckington's mysterious connections, were stacked high. As the farm animals gathered, an air of excitement and apprehension filled the air. Pigella stood on the stage, flanked by Cluckington and Ewephoria. Her eyes darted nervously from side to side, clearly uncomfortable with all the attention. Cluckington stepped forward, his voice ringing out across the crowd. Fellow animals of Sunshine Farm, today marks the beginning of a new era, an era of beauty, of progress, of pig lipstick synergy. A cheer rose from the crowd, though some animals exchanged puzzled glances at the phrase, pig lipstick synergy. Ewephoria took center stage. And now, to demonstrate this revolutionary technique, our visionary leader Pigella will apply the first lipstick. All eyes turned to Pigella, who stared blankly at the lipstick tube presented to her. After a moment of awkward silence, she grabbed it with her mouth and began to chew. "Behold," Cluckington quickly interjected, "Pigella's unconventional application method. Truly, she is pushing the boundaries of cosmetic innovation." The crowd murmured in awe as Pigella, her snout now smeared with red, happily munched on the lipstick tube. What followed was a chaotic scene of pigs attempting to apply lipstick. Some smeared it across their snouts, others ended up with it in their ears, and a few, following Pigella's lead, simply ate the tubes. As the day wore on, the farm became a riot of color, with pigs sporting every shade of red, pink, and purple imaginable. The other animals watched in a mixture of amusement and disbelief. Cluckington and Ewephoria surveyed the scene with satisfaction. Their plan was working perfectly. The farm was distracted, Pigella's position was secure, and their own power grew by the minute. But as the initial excitement began to fade, murmurs of discontent started to arise. Some pigs complained of irritation from the lipstick, while others questioned the practicality of wearing makeup while wallowing in mud. Wilbur, the pragmatic pig, approached Cluckington with concerns. "The lipstick is affecting our ability to root for truffles," he pointed out, "and some of us are having allergic reactions." Cluckington's eyes narrowed. "Are you suggesting that Pigella's vision is flawed? Perhaps you need to adjust your perspective, Wilbur. Remember, progress often comes with temporary discomfort." As Wilbur skulked away, Ewephoria leaned in close to Cluckington. "We may need to address these concerns before they get out of hand," she whispered. Cluckington nodded. "Indeed. It's time for phase 2 of our plan. We'll need to give them something new to focus on, something even more outrageous." As the sun set on Sunshine Farm, the animals retired to their homes, leaving behind a trail of smeared lipstick. In her sty, Pigella dozed contentedly, unaware of the turmoil her vision had caused. And in the shadows, Cluckington and Ewephoria plotted their next move, determined to maintain their grip on power, no matter the cost to the farm. Chapter 5: Cracks in the Facade. As weeks passed, the initial excitement of the lipstick initiative began to wane. The novelty of seeing pigs with brightly colored snouts had worn off, and practical problems started to surface. The farm's productivity took a noticeable dip as pigs struggled to perform their usual tasks while maintaining their new look. A group of disgruntled swine gathered in the pig pen, their lipstick smeared and fading. "I can hardly breathe with this gunk on my snout," complained Petunia, a spotted sow. "And have you tried rooting for grubs lately? Impossible." Wilbur nodded in agreement. "Not to mention the rashes. Half the piglets are scratching themselves raw." As discontent grew, Cluckington and Ewephoria knew they needed to act fast to maintain control. They called an emergency meeting of the barnyard parliament. The converted barn was packed as animals filed in. curiosity and concern evident on their faces. President Hogsworth sat in his usual spot, awake for once but looking utterly bewildered. Cluckington took the podium, his voice ringing out with practiced authority. Fellow citizens of Sunshine Farm, we've gathered today to address the overwhelming success of our lipstick initiative. A murmur of confusion rippled through the crowd. Success, Bessie the cow muttered. Has he seen the state of our troughs? Half the pigs can't eat properly with that stuff on. Ewephoria stepped forward, her well-groomed wool gleaming. We understand that change can be challenging. But let us not forget the visionary brilliance of our leader Pigella. All eyes turned to Pigella, who was busy trying to eat her own tail, her snout a rainbow of smeared colors. Behold, Cluckington exclaimed. Even now, Pigella demonstrates her innovative spirit, exploring new sources of nutrition. The animals exchanged skeptical glances, but years of conditioning had taught them to doubt their own perceptions when it came to Pigella's actions. And now, Ewephoria announced, Pigella has an exciting new proposal to address your concerns and take our farm to even greater heights. Pigella, realizing she was being addressed, looked up with a start. Oh, yes, heights, very high, and colors, she squealed, clearly having no idea what was going on. Cluckington smoothly interjected, What our esteemed leader means is this. We will be expanding our beautification project to all animals on the farm. A collective gasp echoed through the barn. But how? Stammered Henrietta the hen. We don't even have lips. Ah, but that's where Pigella's genius truly shines, Ewephoria gushed. For birds, we'll have beak polish, for cows hoof glitter, and for sheep, wool dye in every color of the rainbow. The animals burst into confused chatter. Some seemed intrigued by the idea, while others were openly skeptical. Old McDougal, the sheepdog, raised his paw. And what about us dogs? We're not exactly known for our fashion sense. Cluckington's eyes gleamed. For you, my canine friend, we have a special treat, tail extensions. The proposal's absurdity hung in the air momentarily before Cluckington continued, his voice rising with fervor. Don't you see? This is about more than beauty, it's about unity. About showing the world that Sunshine Farm is a progressive paradise where every animal, regardless of species, can express themselves. As Cluckington spoke, Ewephoria circulated through the crowd, whispering to key influencers among the animals. Think of the possibilities, she murmured to the horses. Your manes could be works of art. To the ducks, she hinted, waterproof mascara for those elegant eyelashes. Slowly but surely, the mood in the barn began to shift. Animals who had been skeptical wondered if there was something to this idea after all. Pigella, caught up in the excitement without understanding it, began to oink rhythmically, a glob of multicolored lipstick dangling from her snout. Listen, Cluckington exclaimed. Pigella is composing a celebratory anthem for our new initiative. Truly, her talents know no bounds. As the meeting adjourned, the animals filed out, their heads spinning with visions of a colorful, glittery future. Cluckington and Ewephoria exchanged triumphant glances. Once again, they had managed to turn a potential disaster into an opportunity to tighten their control. But not everyone was convinced. In a dark corner of the barn, Wilbur huddled with a small group of animals. This has gone too far, he whispered. We need to do something before it's too late. The others nodded gravely. A resistance was forming right under the noses of the farm's flamboyant leadership. Chapter 6. The Underground Movement. As the farm descended into a chaos of colors and glitter, a small but determined group of animals began to meet in secret. They gathered in the old apple orchard, far from the prying eyes of Cluckington's informants. Wilbur, who had emerged as the unofficial leader of this resistance, addressed the group in hushed tones. "Friends, we've stood by long enough. This farm is falling apart, and it's time we did something about it." Bessie the cow nodded solemnly. "The milk production has dropped by half since they started insisting we wear udder tassels." "And don't get me started on the aerodynamic feather extensions," added Henrietta the hen. "Half of us can't even get off the ground anymore." Old MacDougall, his tail drooping under the weight of gaudy extensions, growled in agreement. "Aye, and there's been nary a sheep properly herded since this madness began." Wilbur looked around at the group, a mix of determination and worry on his face. "We need to expose the truth. Show everyone that Pigella is just a figurehead and that Cluckington and Ewephoria are the real power behind the throne." "But how?" asked a timid voice from the back. It was Daisy, a young lamb whose wool had been dyed a garish pink. "They control everything, the meetings, the announcements, even the farm newsletter." Wilbur's eyes gleamed with an idea. "The newsletter, that's it. We'll create our own underground publication. We'll call it The Barnyard Whisper." The group murmured in excitement. It was a risky plan, but it just might work. Over the next few weeks, the resistance worked tirelessly. They gathered evidence of the farm's declining productivity, documented the health issues caused by the various beautification products, and even managed to snap a few incriminating photos of Cluckington and Ewephoria in secret meetings. Their first edition of The Barnyard Whisper was a crude affair printed on scraps of bark with berry juice, but its message was clear and powerful. It detailed the real state of the farm, free from the propaganda that had become the norm. Under cover of night, they distributed the newsletter, hiding copies in haystacks, slipping them into feed troughs, and tucking them under the wobbling fence posts surrounding the farm. Sunshine Farm was abuzz with whispered conversations as dawn broke the next day. Animals huddled in small groups, furtively discussing the revelations in The Barnyard Whisper. But Cluckington and Ewephoria were not about to let their control slip away so easily. As news of the underground publication reached them, they quickly convened an emergency meeting of the Barnyard Parliament. Cluckington's voice boomed across the assembled animals, his comb quivering with barely contained rage. "My fellow farm citizens, it has come to our attention that subversive elements are attempting to undermine the great progress we've made." Ewephoria chimed in, her voice dripping with false concern. "These troublemakers would have you believe that our beloved Pigella's vision is anything less than revolutionary. They spread lies about declining productivity and health issues." Pigella, who had been napping in a corner, suddenly perked up at the sound of her name. "Revolution? Oh yes, very important. And health. Health is good," she squealed, a strand of drool mixed with faded lipstick hanging from her chin. Cluckington quickly stepped in. "You see? Even now, Pigella reminds us of the importance of our mission. She urges us not to be swayed by these baseless accusations." But for the first time, the animals didn't seem entirely convinced. Whispers rippled through the crowd, and several skeptical glances were directed at the podium. Sensing the shift in mood, Ewephoria played her trump card. "And let us not forget," she bleated dramatically, "that questioning Pigella's wisdom is tantamount to questioning the very foundations of our society. Do we want to return to the dark days before her enlightened leadership?" A hush fell over the crowd as the animals contemplated this. The memory of life before Pigella's rule had been so thoroughly rewritten in their minds that the mere thought filled them with dread. Taking advantage of the silence, Cluckington pressed on. "To counteract these lies and show our unwavering support for Pigella's vision, we will launch our most ambitious project yet." The animals held their breath, equal parts curious and apprehensive. "Starting tomorrow," Cluckington announced with a flourish, We will begin construction on the Great Pigella Monument. A statue so grand, so magnificent, that it will be visible from 3 farms over. Gasps and murmurs filled the barn. A monument? In these times of scarcity. But before any objections could be raised, Ewephoria jumped in. This monument will not only honor our great leader, but will also provide jobs and purpose for every animal on the farm. It's not just a statue, it's an economic stimulus package. As the meeting adjourned, the animals filed out, their heads spinning. The revelations of the Barnyard Whisper warred with the grandiose promises of the new monument project in their minds. Wilbur and his group of resistors huddled in the shadows, watching the confusion on their fellow animals' faces. "They're wavering," Wilbur whispered, "but Cluckington and Ewephoria are clever. This monument project could undo everything we've accomplished." Old MacDougall nodded gravely. "Aye, lad. The battle for the soul of Sunshine Farm has only just begun." As night fell on the farm, an uneasy tension hung in the air. On one side, a small but determined group fighting for truth. On the other, a powerful duo willing to go to any lengths to maintain their grip on power. And caught in the middle, a farm full of animals teetering on the brink of chaos. Chapter 7: The Monumental Divide. As dawn broke over Sunshine Farm, the air was thick with anticipation and dread. Construction on the Great Pigella Monument was set to begin, and every animal had been assigned a role in the project. Wilbur and his band of resistors knew they had to act fast. They had spent the night planning their most daring move yet, a public expose of Cluckington and Ewephoria's manipulation. As the animals gathered in the main field, Cluckington strutted onto a hastily constructed stage, his feathers gleaming in the morning sun. "My fellow farm citizens," he crowed. "Today, we embark on a journey that will etch our greatness into the very landscape." But before he could continue, a commotion erupted from the back of the crowd. Wilbur, flanked by Bessie and old MacDougall, pushed his way to the front. "Enough!" Wilbur shouted, his voice carrying across the stunned audience. "It's time you all knew the truth." Euphoria's eyes widened in alarm. She whispered urgently to a group of loyal sheep, who began to move towards Wilbur. Undeterred, Wilbur pressed on. "Pigella is not the visionary you think she is. She's been manipulated by Cluckington and Ewephoria all along." A gasp rippled through the crowd. Animals turned to each other in confusion and disbelief. Cluckington, his composure slipping, squawked indignantly. "Lies! Slander! Where is your proof?" At that moment, Henrietta the hen fluttered onto the stage, carrying a small satchel. "Right here!" she clucked, upending the bag. Out tumbled a pile of documents, secret meeting notes, manipulated productivity reports, and candid photos of Cluckington and Ewephoria coaching a confused Pigella. The crowd erupted into chaos. Some animals surged forward to get a better look at the evidence, while others backed away in shock. Ewephoria, seeing their carefully constructed world crumbling, made a desperate move. "Look," she bleated, pointing a hoof towards the farmhouse. "Pigella is about to make an announcement." All eyes turned to see Pigella waddling onto the farmhouse porch, looking more confused than ever. Her snout was a smeared rainbow of faded lipstick, and a pair of mismatched boots adorned her front trotters, another of her fashion innovations. As Pigella opened her mouth to speak, a sudden gust of wind swept across the farm. The papers Henrietta had brought fluttered into the air, scattering in all directions. Animals scrambled to grab them, desperately pushing and shoving to uncover the truth. In the midst of the chaos, a loud crack echoed across the field. The hastily constructed stage began to splinter, unable to bear the weight of the struggle. Cluckington and Ewephoria, caught off guard, stumbled as the platform shifted beneath them. Seeing his chance, Wilbur rushed forward, determined to finally confront the farm's puppet masters. As he reached the edge of the crumbling stage, time seemed to slow. Cluckington's eyes met Wilbur's, a mix of fury and fear evident in the rooster's gaze. Ewephoria bleated in panic, her perfectly groomed wool now matted with dirt. Pigella, oblivious to the turmoil, continued to oink happily from the porch, her words lost in the din. The stage gave one final groan. Animals scattered in all directions as it began to collapse. Wilbur lunged forward, his snout inches from Cluckington's tail feathers, and then a deafening boom shook the farm, drowning out all other sounds. A brilliant flash of light filled the sky, momentarily blinding everyone. As the light faded and the dust began to settle, the animals of Sunshine Farm blinked in confusion, trying to make sense of what had just happened. Where the stage had stood moments before, there was now only a cloud of dust. Cluckington, Ewephoria, and Wilbur were nowhere to be seen. Pigella's voice rang out from the farmhouse porch, suddenly clear and commanding. "My fellow animals," she said, her tone unlike anything they'd ever heard from her before. "I believe it's time we had a talk." The animals froze, unsure whether to approach or flee. Was this the same Pigella they'd known? Or had something fundamentally changed? As a stunned silence fell over the farm, one question hung in the air. What happens next? The fate of Sunshine Farm and the truth behind years of manipulation balanced on a knife's edge, and not a single animal knew which way it would fall. The end. Thank you for your time today. Until next time, stay gruntled.